got a video call of you apologizing.
The beef that had all of hip-hop locked in the insults, the diss tracks, the gravesite posts, the Beyoncé's Mama drama, all of it just came to a full stop when T.I. and his son King Harris did something nobody on God's green earth saw coming. They went live and they apologized, but the reason why they did it might be even more shocking than the apology itself: the fire that burned too hot. You got to understand something before we even get to the apology, before we get to the IG Live moment that stopped hip-hop dead in its tracks and had everybody from Atlanta to the Bronx leaning forward with their jaws on the floor. You got to understand just how wild, how personal, how deep and ugly this whole thing had gotten first, because without knowing all of that, the apology means nothing. And trust me, by the time we're done here, that apology is gonna mean everything. So, let's go back and set the stage right. The tension between 50 Cent and T.I. did not just show up out of nowhere in 2026. This thing has roots. Deep, twisted, complicated roots going all the way back to the late 2000s, when both of these men were sitting at the very top of hip-hop. Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent, was the undisputed king of New York, the G-Unit general who survived 9 bullets and turned all that pain into platinum records. And Clifford Harris, T.I., was down in Atlanta claiming the throne of the South with the kind of confidence that only comes from a man who truly, deeply believes in himself. These two men were at the top of the game at the same time, and in hip-hop, that kind of closeness to the throne almost always creates friction. The early shots between them were quiet, a line here, a raised eyebrow there, the kind of coded talk that hip-hop fans learn to read like a second language. But then, 2007 came around, and everything got a whole lot more complicated. T.I. was arrested in Atlanta during a federal sting operation run by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives. The charges were serious, real serious. Federal weapons charges involving machine guns and silencers brought against a man who was already a convicted felon from a 1998 cocaine charge. We are talking about charges that carried up to 10 years in prison for each count. This was not small. This was not some minor situation. This was the kind of legal trouble that swallows lives and ends careers. But then, T.I. pleaded guilty and got a sentence of 1 year and 1 day. 1 year and 1 day. For federal weapons charges involving machine guns. For a man who already had a felony on his record. In hip-hop circles, that number did not add up at all, and 50 Cent was not going to stay quiet about it. In 2008, 50 Cent dropped You So Tough as part of G-Unit's album T.O.S., Terminate on Sight, and those lyrics hit like a brick through a window.
I got the best lawyers money can buy. They said it would've got me 10 or maybe 9. I said, well, how do you explain how homie breathes? I said, to keep your mouth shut or you eat the cheese. You so tough.
Now, when people pressed 50 on whether that line was about T.I. specifically, he did what 50 always does. He got slippery with it. He talked about using real-life situations to make entertaining music. He said if he had a real problem with any artist, that artist would know about it directly. But then, when they pushed him even harder, he said exactly this.
Is that line about T.I.?
Absolutely. For the public to decide.
So, there it was. Not a denial and not a full confirmation either. Just that signature 50 Cent move of sitting right in the middle of both, leaving it perfectly placed between plausible deniability and obvious accusation, and letting the culture do the dirty work, while he watched from a distance with a smirk on his face. T.I. has always denied strongly that his lighter sentence had anything to do with cooperating with the authorities. He has talked about how his plea deal was straightforward, how it was about resolving things for his family, how it had nothing to do with giving up anybody else. He pointed to the Crime Stoppers ad as something he did specifically to seek justice for his close friend and assistant Phillant Johnson, who was shot and killed in Cincinnati in May 2006. That loss was personal to him. That grief was real. T.I. has always said his actions around that case were about getting justice for a murdered friend, not about working with the police against people he did not even know. But in hip-hop, context is usually the first thing that gets thrown out when somebody has a good story to tell. And 50 Cent had himself a very good story. For years, this whole situation just sat there simmering under the surface. There were interviews where both men spoke about each other with some level of respect. There were moments where T.I. even played the whole tension down completely, describing it as two men who play rough but still have mutual respect for each other. In one conversation, T.I. broke it down like this.
Me and 50 cool, I'm the only one who's not offended by his brass approach, and he's not offended by mine. So, we play rough, but ain't no issue. It's a mutual respect, though.
That sounded reasonable. That sounded like two grown men who understood the game they were both playing. But then 2020 arrived, and the King Von situation lit the fuse on something that had been waiting for a very long time to explode. When King Von was shot and killed outside an Atlanta hookah lounge in November 2020, T.I. posted a message that a lot of people read as insensitive. He was urging outsiders to handle their beefs in their own cities instead of bringing that energy to Atlanta. 50 Cent responded publicly and warned T.I. that those words could get him killed. T.I. came back and said his post had nothing to do with King Von. A lot of people on the internet were not fully convinced, and just like that, the seed of this new public conflict was planted and ready to grow. Fast forward to February 2026, and that seed had grown into something massive, something full of thorns, something that was about to drag in people who never asked to be any part of this situation at all. T.I. went on the Nightcap podcast with Shannon Sharp and turned up the heat in a serious way. He was not being subtle, he was not being polite about it. He was completely done with the middle ground and said straight up that he had called 50 out for a versus battle, and 50 did not want that smoke.
I said I wanted 50. That's what I said. He don't want no smoke though. Oh, Lord. I called my man out. He don't want no smoke. He ducking smoke. It's cool.
50 Cent responded the way he always responds, not with a diss track, not with a direct face-to-face confrontation, but with receipts. He went back into the archives and started posting the Crime Stoppers video, the court testimony footage, caption after caption designed not just to hurt T.I., but to embarrass him, to tear down his credibility in front of the whole culture, while never once raising his own voice above a trolling laugh. And then, on February 22nd of 2026, 50 Cent posted an unflattering photo of Tiny Harris. That is when everything changed completely. That is when this whole situation went from a rap beef to something that felt genuinely and deeply personal. And that is when a 21-year-old young man named King Harris decided that he had seen more than enough. King Harris steps into the fire and the whole world watches it burn. This is where the story changes direction. This is where it stops being a professional competition between two of hip-hop's most successful artists and turns into something much more raw and much more human. Something that connects to the most basic instinct a person can have, which is the need to protect your mother no matter what the cost. 50 Cent had posted an unflattering old photo of Tiny Harris, a Grammy-winning artist who was a founding member of the group Escape, a woman who built her own legacy completely separate from any beef her husband was having with another rapper, and almost everybody on the internet said the same thing at the same time. This was going too far. You do not go after the wife. You do not go after the woman who did not choose to be in this fight, who did not sign up for any of this, who was living her life while her husband and another rapper were trading shots over a versus battle that may never even happen. But 50 did it anyway, and the moment he did not just provoke T.I. He woke up a son. King Harris, 21 years old, an up-and-coming rapper and the son of T.Y. and Tiny Harris, jumped on Instagram and let loose something that stopped the entire internet cold, not because it was planned out, not because it was strategic, but because it was absolutely real. You could hear it in his voice. You could feel it in every single word. This was not some PR move. This was a son responding to disrespect shown to his mother, and he was holding nothing back.
How y'all bitch raised? I'm not raised like that. I don't go. I'm not going back my mama. I'm not going. So tell your ass mama dig her ass up and post a picture that look better than my mama. Wrong with you? Y'all better tie y'all shoes. Y'all don't know who with. You better put that music up and shut the up, cause all that other shit ain't gonna get it on my mother.
Let that sit for a second, because what King Harris just did there was cross a line that hip-hop has a quiet agreement about. He brought up Sabrina Jackson, 50 Cent's mother, a woman who was murdered back in 1983 when her son was only 8 years old. A tragedy so deep and so defining in 50 Cent's life story that it comes up in almost every serious conversation about who this man is and what made him the way he is. King did not just mention her in passing. He went on to post images of a tombstone and what looked like her gravesite. The internet split in two right away. Half of the timeline said 50 brought all of this on himself by going after Tiny first. The other half said King had gone somewhere that you simply do not go, no matter who started it and no matter what the reason was. Both sides had a point that was worth listening to. Both arguments carried real moral weight, and the debate was not going away anytime soon. But King was nowhere near done. On February 23rd, he came back with a whole second round of attacks. He called 50 an attention seeker. Twitter. He brought up 50 getting shot 9 times in 2000 and said he did nothing about it, which was a direct shot at 50's street reputation and was designed to cut deep. He brought back the moment in 2007 when Kanye West outsold 50 Cent album for album, a public loss that has followed Curtis Jackson like a shadow for nearly 20 years. He then posted old photos of 50 Cent holding giant sex toys at a radio appearance, and then he turned his attention toward 50 Cent's son Sire, posting a photo of Sire sitting on his dad's lap and saying some very disrespectful things about it. He also tagged a long list of well-known celebrities, including Diddy, Rick Ross, and Ashanti, making sure the audience for all of this was as wide as possible. T.I. watched all of this happen and did not step in to slow his son down. He stepped forward right alongside him. He posted messages saying King was going to win because he was a good man, a good father, and a good person. And then T.I. went to work himself. On February 23rd, he dropped the diss track called The Right One, and it was direct and personal. It accused 50 Cent of being a small man, hiding inside a big image, of running away from competitive battles, of having deep problems with women that went back to losing his mother at a young age, and of having a history full of beefs that he ultimately lost, including ones against Murder Inc., Cameron, Rick Ross, Fat Joe, Jadakiss, and Kanye. The track painted 50 not as a hip-hop legend, but as a bully who had never truly been made to face the consequences of his actions. T.I. also previewed a second track called War, produced by the legendary DJ Tump, which made it clear that this was not a one-time response, but the beginning of a sustained attack. His final album, Kill the King, suddenly had a very real and very public context around it. And then, in what almost everyone read as a sharp dig at 50, he posted a birthday message to his own mother, celebrating his ability to protect and take care of her. The meaning behind that was not hidden at all. Meanwhile, Tina Knowles came into the picture. Beyoncé's mother, a well-respected fashion designer and cultural figure, publicly reposted a video of Tiny Harris looking beautiful, with a caption praising her energy and grace. It was a quiet gesture, a dignified one, the kind of support that women in the public eye show each other when one of them is being publicly mocked and disrespected by a man with a large platform and nothing to lose. Tiny responded with appreciation. The internet responded with warmth toward both women, and then 50 Cent responded to Tina Knowles. He posted a photo of her with a caption that included the words "little f***ed up albino kids" and something about grandmothers getting involved in business that was not theirs. The comment about albino kids was immediately understood as a reference to one of T.Y. and Tiny's children who has albinism. He then posted a gif of Solange Knowles taking off her earrings, which everyone knew was a reference to the famous 2014 elevator fight between Solange and Jay-Z, with a joke caption about killers in elevators. The reaction was fast, large, and came from all directions. Beyoncé's fans came in strong. Celebrities including Holly Robinson Peete spoke out. People who had no interest at all in the original beef came forward to say that going after Tina Knowles and making jokes about a child with albinism was past the point of what could be accepted, even by the loose standards of a hip-hop beef. By February 25th, 50 Cent had deleted the posts. All of them. Every single piece of content connected to the beef was gone from his page. King Harris also released his own diss track called Made Man on February 24th, continuing to put himself directly in the middle of the conflict. The track made it clear that this young man was not about to stand down, was not about to let his father carry this alone, and had no plans to be quiet just because some people thought he should stay out of grown men's business after 50 Cent put his mother's image on the internet for the whole world to comment on. T.I. gave the signal that there was more coming. He posted that they were just warming up. He talked about having a #1 trending song on YouTube. The war, it seemed, was nowhere close to being over, but then something shifted, something changed that absolutely nobody was expecting, something that made everything before it look like just the opening act of a much bigger and much more complicated story. T.I. and King Harris went live, and what they said on that live changed everything, where the smoke settled and where it didn't. By February 25th of 2026, the internet was absolutely exhausted and absolutely hooked at the same time. This beef had moved so fast and gone so many places in such a short amount of time that even people who did not follow hip-hop closely knew the names T.I., King Harris, and 50 Cent by the end of it. But here is the thing about a fire that burns this hot. Eventually, something has to give, and in this case, several things gave at once, and not all of them in the direction people were expecting. Let's start with 50 Cent. Cent, because his move on February 25th was one of the most talked about moments of the entire beef. By that date, 50 Cent had deleted his posts and all other content tied to the feud from his Instagram page. Every caption, every trolling video, every unflattering photo, gone. And the culture immediately split into two camps about what that meant. One side said 50 had retreated, that the Bayhive pressure, the public backlash over the albino kid's comment, the widespread criticism for bringing Tina Knowles into the situation, and the overall wave of negative energy had simply become too much, even for a man who has built his entire brand around not caring what anybody thinks. The other side said this was just 50 being 50, that deleting posts is not the same as backing down, that a man who has been doing this for over 20 years knows exactly when to be loud and exactly when to go quiet, and that the silence itself was a strategic move rather than a surrender. Both readings have merit, but what made this particular silence feel significant was the context surrounding it. 50 had gone after Tina Knowles, Beyoncé's mother, and posted content that appeared to mock one of T.I. and Tiny's children, who has albinism. Those were not moves that landed well with anybody. Even people who had been firmly on 50 Cent's side throughout the whole beef found it difficult to defend those specific posts. The backlash that came from Beyoncé's fan base alone was enough to make any public figure stop and reconsider their next move. And 50 Cent, whatever you want to say about him, is a businessman first. He understands optics. He understands when a situation starts costing more than it is giving back. He had also been using the whole period to promote his executive-produced Broadway revival of August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone, set to open on April 25th of 2026. And some of his captions promoting that show, with lines about no rappers and no bad BBLs and no little messed up albino kids, had ended up overshadowing the project itself with controversy. When your beef starts getting in the way of your business, that is usually the moment a smart operator like 50 Cent decides to pump the brakes. Not because he lost, but because the return on investment was no longer there. The public reaction to all of this was genuinely divided in ways that were interesting to watch. Social media platforms, especially X and Instagram, were full of people arguing passionately on both sides. Some people were firmly in T.I. and King's corner, arguing that 50 had started this whole personal escalation by going after Tiny, that he had no right to be surprised or offended by anything that came back at him after that, and that King defending his mother was not only understandable, but admirable. These voices pointed to 50's history of targeting women in his beefs as a pattern that deserved to be called out loudly and publicly. There was also a whole separate conversation happening about King Harris himself and what this beef revealed about who he is as a person and as a public figure. His history of public incidents, including the 2023 altercation with his own father at an Atlanta Falcons game, the Waffle House situation, and the 2024 arrest involving DUI charges and firearm possession had already given people a specific picture of who King Harris was before any of this happened. Some people looked at his response to 50 Cent through that lens and saw someone who was once again acting on pure emotion without thinking through the consequences. Others looked at the same actions and saw a young man who had been pushed into a corner and came out swinging in the only way he knew how, and who deserved more credit than he was getting for standing up for his family without hesitation. The question of whether family should be off limits in hip-hop beefs was one that the culture was wrestling with openly throughout this whole situation. It is not a new debate. It has come up in almost every major beef in the history of the genre, but this particular situation put it front and center in a way that felt fresh and urgent, because it involved not just a rapper's wife being targeted, but a mother publicly defending herself through the support of friends like Tina Knowles, a son jumping in to fight for her, and a child with a medical condition being referenced in a mocking caption. Each of those layers added weight to the conversation and made it harder for people to simply sit back and enjoy the entertainment value without also feeling some kind of discomfort about what they were watching. And then there was the Versus question, which had started all of this in the first place and remained completely unresolved. As of February 2026, the battle had still not happened. All of the noise, all of the diss tracks, all of the deleted posts, all of the family members getting pulled in, all of the Bayhive mobilization, and the one thing that T.I. had originally been asking for was still sitting there uncollected, still dangling, still unfinished. And that felt like the most 50 Cent outcome possible, because 50 Cent has always understood that the anticipation of something is often more powerful than the thing itself. That as long as the Versus has not happened, T.I. is still in a position of wanting something that 50 has not given him. And in hip-hop, the person who wants something from the other person is never fully in control of the situation. T.I., for his part, had made it clear that he was not going to keep waiting forever. He had suggested Lil Wayne as an alternative Versus opponent, calling him a worthy competitor and expressing genuine respect for his catalog. He had talked about how the Gucci Mane and Jeezy Versus was the one that truly made sense as a comparison for what he was looking for. He was signaling that if 50 was not going to show up, life and business would continue without him. And with a final album in the streets and films in post-production and a comedy career that he described as his peace, T.I. had plenty of reasons to keep moving forward regardless of what 50 decided to do. What do you think about this case? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Also, click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.